Hi, good evening. I'm Rosalyn Montgomery, and my partner is,
Bryan win.
and we'll be presenting this evening on the ideal evaluation process for evaluating teachers. So, the teacher evaluation system should be set up in a manner with standardized rules to measure a teacher's effectiveness with instruction and relationships with their children that can measure them in a fair way. But at the same sense, the long term goal is to ensure that all students have access to effective instruction, that the system of teacher evaluation and how teachers are hired and fired and receive tenure was challenged in the Vergara versus the state of California case, in which 9 students sued the state of California, declaring that K through 12 public school teachers obtain tenure too easily. And then once a teacher does obtain tenure, it's too hard to fire them. So the initial trial was decided on the trial courts on June 10th, 2014, and it was decided in favor of the 9 students who sued under the equal protection of laws, um, making various provisions of the educational code unconstitutional. Various members of the state, as well as teacher unions, appealed, and then the decision was overturned, stating that the plaintiffs failed to show that the statutes themselves make any certain group of students more likely to be taught by ineffective teachers. Then the plaintiffs took the court tried to take it to the Supreme Court of California, but it was denied. The petition for a rehearing was denied. So what was challenged in it were parts of the California Education Code, specifically codes 44932 and 44938, which has to do with the tenure protection of the due process of teachers, and how they are disciplined. So if a teacher receives an unsatisfactory evaluation, they have to be given an opportunity to correct it, especially if they are tenured or permanent status. After the 90 days to correct, then if they still did not correct it, they have to be given written notice that there intends to be dismissal. Then that teacher has 30 days to appeal. They also have, if that appeal is still not approved, then they have 60 days to appeal again. They meet with a 3-person committee, and then they can appeal to the state superior court. And this is a long and tedious process. That's why in the lawsuit they stated that it is hard to dismiss tenured teachers. So the implications from Vergara. The plaintiffs were saying that 2 years is not long enough to decide if a teacher is good or not. So teachers are getting tenure too easily. They also said that once a teacher is tenured, that the process to fire them is too hard, and that during reduction in force subjects, sometimes many good teachers are released instead over veteran teachers because seniority is the only factor that decides who keeps the teachers. Now, the defendants or the teacher unions and the teachers, they stated that tenure is needed because it insulates teachers from backlash or retaliation against an administrator who may have personal vendettas against them. It also helps to stabilize the schools and help keep same personnel in schools, which make the kids creates a safer environment for the students. And it also gives the teachers the autonomy to be able to pick curriculum that is best for their students without any backlash. So in the ruling of the case, it stated that even though they sued under um, the ed the dang it, they sued under the need to have access. They saying that even though some people had ineffective teachers, it wasn't against any specific group that they received the ineffective teachers. So that's why they lost. So taking a look at the Vergara versus the current teacher evaluation system, both the plaintiffs in the Vergara case and all educators want effective teachers in the classroom. So one of the things that came up in the Vergara, process was that value-added modeling or methodology used states that ineffective teachers can highly affect the livelihood and the learning of students in the future. They make less money, they are less successful in school, and they also brought up that the suspension and dismissal of ineffective teachers is a very long process. So, with teacher evaluations, research has shown that the more frequent informal check ins that you do with a teacher, the better picture that you can get between the relationship of what the teacher is doing in class and students' academic performance. So, an evaluation system should be aligned with some sort of standards, in particular, the California Standards for Teaching Profession, which have been designed to show what effective teachers should know. And Looney stated that effective teachers should know their subject, develop relationships, manage environments effectively. And as we go into the future, teachers should also be lifelong learners and should be teaching 21st century skills to their current students so that they can be prepared for jobs in the future that we may not know what those will be yet.
Okay, specific components to promote practice. The next slide, please. So during the ideal evaluation process, using the California Standards for the Teaching Profession, the educator and the administrator will discuss the areas of effectiveness or performance that the teacher will look for, that the administrator will be looking for. So there will be 4 areas in the ideal evaluation process: ineffective practice and approaching effective practice. These 2 areas will result in guided improvement of practice goals needed that the administrator and the educator will decide. The other 2 areas, effective practice and accomplished practice, these 2 areas will result in the educator just needing to set their own goals for improving their particular practices. And the ideal evaluation process is to help the teachers grow. It's not something that the administrator will just look to, okay, I got you, you're terrible, and I'm going to fire you. Next slide, please. Okay, so one of the areas that will be discussed in the ideal evaluation process is the educator engaging and supporting all students? Are they using engaging materials that are aligned with the standard? Are they utilizing purposeful groupings when the students are doing assignments? Are they using a variety of instructional materials? And are they using a range of techniques so that all students in the activity are engaged? Next slide. Another area from the teaching California Standards of the Teaching Profession is creating and maintaining effective environments. Can the teacher effectively manage their classroom and establish a culture of learning? Are they creating high expectations and allowing the kids or the students to persevere? Is their classroom organized in a manageable way so that classroom procedures can be followed? And are they maximizing their instructional time so that the classroom routines are efficient and the procedures promote safety for all the students in the classroom? Does the educator understand and organize their subject matter? To be an effective educator and in the ideal evaluation process, the educator should select outcomes that are rigorous in the discipline and adhering to academic standards. Does the educator have knowledge of the content? And do they understand the prerequisite skills or scaffolds needed for the students? Are they designing lessons that incorporate effective instructional strategies so that all the students are engaged and want to do the activities? Can the educator design lessons that are varied in complexity so that it reaches a wide range of learning outcomes to support all students in their classroom? Go ahead. Next slide. Can the educator effectively plan and design learning experiences? When planning lessons, is the educator setting long-term goals that are clear and logically sequenced for students' learning? Does the educator include essential learning components? For example, the standards, the learning outcomes, instruction, the assessment, and are they